Today, hundreds of people from across the world will be right here in San Diego for camp. It's not the kind of camp people jump up and down hoping to attend. This is called Camp Widow. The annual conference gives widows and widowers a place to share their pain and find resources, also a chance to begin the healing process. Our guest, Tanya Villanueva Tepper, lost her fiance on 9/11, is here to share her story and provide some hope. Tanya, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Flew out to San Diego to take part in this. You're going to be one of the keynote speakers.
Yes, one of the speakers. I'm presenting a workshop about grief over time.
Grief over time.
Yes.
Share your story on 9/11. You were living in New York City with your fiance, Sergio.
I was living with Sergio. We were together for 7 years. We had just gotten engaged, and he answered the call to the World Trade Center. He was a firefighter from Ladder 132 in Brooklyn, and he was one of the 343 firefighters and almost 3,000 victims that never made it home. Yeah.
That had to be incredibly painful. You are part of a documentary called Rebirth,
yes.
And although people started to see the World Trade Center be cleared and the towers slowly beginning to be built again, part of the interesting thing about this documentary is that is not what was happening inside people's hearts, their souls, and their lives. It was getting harder as the time went on. Is that right?
For the initial, I would say it was a good 3 years before we started to see a shift in the grieving process, but it was very heavy those first 3 years. And what Jim Whittaker did with the film was, his initial goal was to capture the rebuilding of the World Trade Center site. And after a few months, he realized that he needed a human component, so he followed 10 of us. One dropped out, so it became 9 of us. And our commitment was for 10 years, and we had to sit down with him for a 3 to 5 hour interview every year, talking about what our year was like, what the grief was like, how were we coping. And during the course of the year, if there was anything significant happening in our lives, he would also come and film that. So over time, you see, we started interviewing in 2002, you see the depths of our grief.
The darkness.
Yes, and I'm not the only one who lost in the film. There's 5 of us in the feature film. One boy lost his mother, another firefighter lost his friends, 93
right.
friends. So there's so many different angles to our stories. But all of us had started to shift our lives.
Because you're remarried.
I'm remarried,
yeah.
and Rebirth, they were there for me on my wedding day. They were there when my 2 children were born, my 2 daughters.
Talk about that interesting
yes.
note just for a moment.
Yes.
She was sharing with me during the commercial break. You have 2 daughters. Talk about these strange 9/11 connection to their births.
Yes. Amelia Grace, my start date of my pregnancy with her was September 11th, 2006. And my due date for my second child was September 11th, 2008. She was born on the 2nd by C-section.
Do you feel like that date keeps trickling into your life?
It does, but I take it as just a sign, a little kiss from heaven that Sergio is looking down and along this journey now with me all the way.
Talk about the journey for other folks. Camp Widow is
yes.
happening in San Diego this weekend. How many people will be there?
250. It's an annual event here in San Diego. They also do an East Coast event, and this year they're also introducing Toronto. And what it does is it brings widows from all over the world. We have some widows coming from Australia, from Ireland, and the workshops and the roundtable discussions are facilitated by other widows. So it's a real opportunity for widows to come together for mutual support, to get hope from those who have walked the journey a little longer than they have, to learn tools for coping, how to deal with finances, how to deal with your children's grief. Great workshops, and it's a weekend. People may think of just tears, and it's not. It's an absolute wonderful balance of celebrating the love that we had with our lost loved ones, of celebrating hope for our future, and also coping with the grief and knowing that we can honor and hold our sorrow gently along the way.
When people ask you, I'm going through something tough, I've lost a really family member, a spouse, or what do you say to people as far as saying, well, when will this get easier? When will it get better? When will I stop crying?
I say, you know, each journey is different. Everyone grieves in very different ways, but I think you can help yourself along the way by just getting a support system around you. Time, change, faith, love, and support. Peer support, I think, is a huge factor in being able to move forward. You need people in your own community who understand the challenges that you face in your grief. And that's why I came to Camp Widow. I had that support with the FDNY counseling unit, and I always wondered, where do widows go who don't have, like, September 11th and the FDNY behind them?
Right.
And I just did a search, and I found Widowed Village, and I found Soaring Spirits, and I found Camp Widow, and I said, well, this is it. And fortunately, Project Rebirth was very supportive in my efforts. They had already started work with the military and first responders in the mental health community, using the film to show that people can move through grief, heal, be resilient, and
there is another side to this.
Another
you
side
can get to the other side. There's the information for Camp Widow. CampWidow.org is the website. One interesting note that I'd like to end this interview on with: what time did your plane touch down here in San Diego last night?
9:11 p.m. 9:11 p.m.
Tanya Villanueva-Tepper, thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
sharing your story.
Thank you. And
more importantly, thank you for helping others in our community and around the world heal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right,
thank you.
Put the information for Camp Widow on our website, san diego6.com. All right, let's get over to